Hey everyone, welcome to another video for ICM 2.0, the Python version. In this video, we are going to be covering the map function as it exists in the processing library. If you are thinking about the map function as it exists in just normal Python or like you've seen it in JavaScript, they function a little differently. There are some similarities, but map in processing is made to function in a way that better aligns to things you may need to do on the canvas. So just please keep that in your mind that you may hear about map in different contexts and it does function differently. Now, there is starter code for this. I have already made a copy. The link, as usual, will be in the description of this video. Please take a minute to get yourself up if you are planning on coding along. And just remember that at any given time, you are welcome to pause, rewatch, whatever you need to do to make sure you are getting the code down. Now, if you look at this code, you'll see that it's pretty simple. It's a rectangle on a black background. And I have a very specific vision for this code. I would like to be able to move my mouse left to right across the screen. And I'd like the background to be black when I am on this left side. And I would like it to turn white when I'm on the right side, but only when I am on the far right side of the screen. I don't want it turning white anywhere else. Now, one thing I know is that if I'm moving left to right and I want changes, that sounds like I'm using mouse X. So in my background on line 12, I'm going to go ahead and plug in mouse X. I'm going to stop, I'm going to hit play, and I'm going to try moving my mouse across the screen. Now I notice my background does change, but it's full white when I'm like a little more than halfway across. And this is frustrating because that is not my intention for this program, but also it makes sense to me because if I look at the size of my canvas, it's 500 by 500. Something that I know about RGB color values is that they're on a scale of 0 to 255. So all hope is not lost here. If I still wanted to make this happen, I need to find a way to kind of proportionally scale my canvas. So it is still going to be 500 units big, but I'm going to somehow tell the computer, instead of seeing this as 500 units, read it as 0 to 255 and make that proportional, very much like when you are scaling a graph and you might have a very large area that you are just scaling from 0 to 1, or that you have a very small area that you are scaling from like 0 to 1,000, very similar to the map function. So let's try using the map function. The map function is going to work like this. It is a function that takes in 5 values, the first of which is a variable, and in our case, we are going to be using a changing variable. It is going to need to know the original minimum of that range, the original maximum, and the new minimum and the new maximum that you want it to map to. So in the case of mouse X, our original minimum is 0 when our mouse is at this side. Our original maximum is 500 at this side, and I want that to go between 0 and 255. Now there is a world that you're welcome to explore later where I could adjust these mins and max to maybe just be the center of my screen and have things change there and nowhere else. Or I could explore like doing minimums and maximums that are not the complete range if I want it to look a little bit different. You're welcome to explore that on your own. We're just going to keep it basic in this video. When I'm using map, I can of course just plug my function in places, but it is often easier to make a variable that it's going to hold this new mapped values of the variable I plugged into map. And something I want to point out is that in this video, I'm going to put my variable directly in my draw function as opposed to putting it up here and then calling it in draw. And calling it as like a global variable in draw. The reason why I'm doing this is because I'm working with mouse X, and mouse X is a constantly updating value. Every time I move my mouse, I get a new value, and that's only going to show up if I do it in draw, which is constantly refreshing. I know I'm never going to need to use this in setup. I don't need to have a value at the start of my program. I'm not going to want to rewrite this value to something different later using a conditional where having it in draw might mess with that flow. So I'm good to make my variable here. If some of that seems confusing, it's okay. It will become more intuitive the more you code and the more you experiment. So for this variable, I'm going to go ahead and call it BG color because I'm plugging in for my background color. I'm going to put in my map function, and I am going to go ahead and plug in my mouse X. I'm going to set my original range as the 0 to 500, and then I'm going to set my new range as the 0 to 255 that exists for color. Now in my background, I'm going to put in BG color. I'm going to stop and hit play. And now when I move my mouse across the screen, at the beginning, it almost looks like nothing is happening, which is very different than before. When I get to about halfway, it's still that middle gray, and it only becomes fully white when I'm all the way on the edge of my screen. This is the way I wanted my project to work, and this is what map can do for me. Map is like a handy thing to have in your back pocket. Transparently, it is not something you will use in every project, but when you want things like this to happen, map is going to be your ideal for that. Now, your remaining 3 tasks all involve this rectangle. You are going to adjust the stroke weight with map, the width and height, and 1 number from the fill. So the red, the green, or the blue from the fill. Now, you are going to need to map each of these. You can choose if it is going to be mouse X or mouse Y that you are mapping, but those are the 2 variables that you're working with. And one recommendation that I would perhaps have for you is that you consider making a dictionary to hold on to all of these. So you could make something called like correct style, make it a dictionary, and you could give them each attributes like weight for line weight, and then you could start mapping it and continue on from there. Again, dictionaries are a great way to keep things orderly if you know you're going to have lots of variables that all affect the same thing or are all related in some way. And I would just recommend practicing them now to kind of get you in the habit. I hope that you have fun with this project. Map is, again, a great thing to have in your back pocket, and I hope you'll use it in future coding. Bye.